we have 5 years of runway to pretty much at actually growing pace to build out the ecosystem. And from our perspective, for layer ones, I think right now, kind of broadly speaking, that's the best time to actually build out the technology, build out the products, kind of core products in the ecosystem as well. I think the more broader for startups in the crypto, if I kind of we started in 2018, it was we saw 2019 where there was very little happening, but actually the best investments were made in 2018, end of 2018, beginning of 2019, right? And so I think all of the smart VCs who have been actually capitalized pretty well from raising their own funds, they will be deploying capital into the early stage startups because their maturity of those startups is like in 2-3 years from now. And so that's exactly when we're going to be kind of recovering. I mean, I'm not even talking about crypto, I'm talking about global market as well, right? And so I think generally speaking, what we're going to see is great teams coming in who see this as opportunity because there's tons of talent that now is on the market with all the layoffs. They actually going in, figuring out some ideas, and then partnering up with top VCs to kind of build that. I think that is I truly expect. I think where it will get harder is for existing startups that need to raise growth capital is where indeed there will be a lot more scrutiny on what is their business model, what is their, if it's token economics, what does that look like to actually justify, 10, 20, $50 million raises. And so I think that's where the split is going to be. Like layer ones, they're all well capitalized, they're all hundreds of millions to billions of treasuries. You have early stage startups, which are going to be fine, kind of building out first products, but obviously people will be challenging more, but also maybe working more, because one of the things that happened last year was that investors didn't have time to work with their startups, right? Because they were always looking for the next thing. And so now I think that experience that they gained from talking with hundreds of companies, it will flow back into early stage startups to kind of help them shape. And so where the challenge will be is with growth startups, which may not have yet figured out how their thing working, and they will have challenge raising. One aspect is that the current state where it's not really clear what are the regulations is actually very detrimental, right? And I think everybody said that is just give us clarity and we'll figure out how to work around that, versus right now it's you never know what is the right thing and what is the wrong thing. Now, there's also ways to do it completely wrong, right? Any regulation is always lagging, and kind of the speed of innovation here is so quick that we're gonna regulate utility tokens. Well, that's 2018, right? At this point, we're not doing utility tokens, we're doing governance tokens, and then next year it's gonna be something new. And so the reality is as things shift, because this is such a programmable protocols which can kind of meld and adapt really quickly, just kind of and regulations are very local. That's the other thing. And so they always either gonna push out innovation, right? Or they need to be they need to regulate the fundamental parts. The fundamental part is connection between the fiat world and the crypto world. That's a part that's fundamental, that is not going anywhere and not changing. But everything else, trying to regulate digital assets themselves without using blockchain. So this is my pitch is regulators should use blockchain. They should actually leverage this technology to provide visibility and transparency of how the assets are classified, how they should be treated, what's the taxation in which region and stuff like this. It should be all on chain, visible to everyone, and with a specific procedure to change it. Unless that's done, I think it will continue that the assets will be issued out of offshore. And so there is no clear links, right, between service providers and protocols and assets that really exist. And so just regulating service providers on itself is not enough, but regulating kind of token issuance and kind of their processes unless it's done well, it will just mean that somebody else will issue them out of offshore. And so I think, so kind of that's where the concern is, that they'll do it wrong, and then nothing will change actually, and more people will just launch the assets anonymously. Or the current state is that it's unclear, and so people just feel stressed and spend way more time on legal figuring out how to do things than building products. And so we need something, but we need it done right, using this technology as a facility to kind of communicate information and make decisions around these assets. So I can say the things that we are seeing already and try to extrapolate some of it. I think the biggest trend is social. I think between kind of whatever's going on with Twitter and broadly speaking, the social networks have been themselves trying to get out of the state where they need to censor and police everything, because if they don't do it, they get pretty much sued by the government, but if they do it, they get outraged by the people. So I think moving social to a censorship-resistant place where community is doing kind of the moderation and it's your interface that this kind of shows you the information, and you can choose different interface, but it's the same kind of global set of social, and your friends are yours, and the content is yours, etc. I think that trend we're already seeing. We already see like few different approaches, and we're just gonna see the transition. Although it's not gonna be fast. That's be clear. I think like people are like, okay, everybody will leave Twitter tomorrow. It's like, no, that's not gonna happen. Twitter is not a mission critical service where everybody will leave if something is wrong. It's an entertainment communication service, and so until there's like massive network effect somewhere else, people will not leave. And so, but I think we have a pretty clear idea how this can grow to capture a big portion of crypto community first, and then expand from there, kind of by actually creating the positive network loops. I think the other side is, as I said, I think there will be a lot more early stage startups who are thinking more of how to use this technology, but not as a crypto startup, but as a startup that uses crypto, or like Web3. And so I think the idea here will be like you will be building, biotech thing, and you will use some of the blockchain for either incentivization or for communication, for opening markets. You do an education startup, and you will do incentives to onboard your first users, and so things like that is going to be a lot more kind of on the background, I think, for many things, versus hey, we're going to have new DeFi thing that's going to take 5 other DeFi things and put them in a new interface. And then I think the third one is, which again we see already, is a lot more institutions and enterprises which have existing business model, and like again, given past few weeks of news, maybe that will slow down, but then in turn I think still the kind of the growth startups, right, the startups that have millions of users but maybe not like became insanely big, the ones that want kind of a competitive advantage, they can use this technology. And we see this with Sweatcoin, we see this with SailGP, we see this with others. Like those are examples where a specific use case, right? Like, okay, we want a fan-owned team, and like we can do it without using blockchain for that matter, right? It's not, but like with blockchain, it's way more usable, it's way more accessible. You have people around the world who can actually participate, right? Or we can, we have loyalty points, what Sweatcoin had, but we want them to be global. We want them to be kind of not attached to the platform itself, and then through that create way bigger network effect, right? That's a use case that, I think a lot of people are excited about. So I think there will be specific use cases now that are working, that have already millions of users, that then will be expanding more across the industry with existing Web2 companies. And for them, that's just growth. That's faster user acquisition or cheaper user acquisition. That's like more revenue, like higher LTV from a user. Right? They look at it as like a business, not as hey, we're gonna issue a token and it's gonna be great, right? It's like, hey, we have a business model. We just wanna supercharge it. How do we do this? Okay, well, blockchain actually allows us to do this, this, and this. Awesome, let's do it. Yeah, for sure. Well, so I mean, to the brighter future and usage, I mean that's happening right now. That's why I mentioned like we have applications, the existing applications that are using blockchain that kind of not putting the wallet and the layer one itself in front of the user first. Like they're getting the use case first, the value first, and then over time they learn, oh, actually, like I'm actually using Near. I have a Near wallet. I have like I can get more assets or I can play more, right? But they start with walking around or playing around in a game or interacting with a team that they are a big fan of, right? And so I think that's a goal anyway, right? And so I think a combination of social and these use cases, that's where kind of the network effects are coming from, right? Because like, oh, actually, I'm a fan of this. Let me join this group, but actually, I'm using the same account. And so my friend's gonna show up in the app, the fan-based app, right? And so I can use that, to see what they are, like what content they're reading, and then I go follow that content also on a website, on a platform that is on chain as well, that I can, participate in this way, and I can learn more about something. So it's like all about this composition of pieces that's gonna be happening. And I think that's what layer ones are for. They are for providing this kind of composition platform. I think for interoperability speaking, like there's definitely a value. I think there will be, my expectation there will be more, I call it remote accounts. It's like the idea that you can actually use an account from another chain on like from a chain A on chain B. So like, use the Ethereum account, but on Near. And I think that will be happening more because bridges themselves have kind of this honeypot problem, where like the more the bridge is used, the higher the risk it's going to be hacked and attacked, and it's sadly really hard to kind of maintain them securely. But if you just leave it to the user to kind of coordinate that, so kind of move it out from the protocol level to the user level, it becomes way simpler and in turn more secure. And I think there will be a lot of interesting things where you kind of can proxy your transactions from other chains to the chain you want to use. And so with that, you will be able to log in with whatever wallet into an app, start using it, and actually just like proxies whatever is needed, including some assets through the bridge. But it's not that you need to bridge specifically and then do stuff. And so I think the more we turn kind of that into experience where users just use apps independently on which layer one their wallet is from, the better I think we'll get kind of this cohesion of the experiences. And that's one of the things that some Near ecosystem project is working on, kind of creating that framework.